Use the actual mouse here. Oh, that's staggeringly. Oh, that's embarrassing. Oh, I love it. Look at that angle. Oh, cavernous look at the back of the house. All right, so I guess at this point, sign in, put a little comment in the comment box. If it's not obvious who your name is or what your name is based on your handle, do some kind of identifying feature. In terms of questions, if you're going to ask questions, since I'm deliberately trying to do double duty here, talking to my EN100 students, also talking to my EN STEM classes, just designate whether or not it's a STEM question or an EN100 question. If it's specifically about the essay, that'll just give me a little bit more material to work with. A couple more people getting signed on. Excellent. So I had a couple of things lined up to say. If people are shy with questions, that's totally fine. Little sidekick wandering around in the background. Get ready for a lot of that fun shenanigans. But just to start us off, does anybody have an opening, like, hey, how you doing kind of question? Anything I can tell you about as we move into this weirdly uncertain part of the semester? Anybody want to open up? Looking for possible questions, looking for any feedback. All right, so I'm going to go through a very tiny little shtick. I can anticipate some questions. I'm deliberately also going to start talking about a PowerPoint that should be up tomorrow, which is going to be pretty close to a step-by-step, like here's how to write the problem solution essay following the format that I gave you with the directions. Hopefully, by the way, one of the questions could be, where do I find my stuff on Blackboard? Here to help if anybody wants to know about that. So first thing I want to say, just on my own kind of personal perspective, I used to hate influencers. Like, the sight of myself doing this makes me nauseous right now. But it's a lot harder than it looks. So as much as I want to make influencers like the new enemy of the state, I have to say, if you're that slick, you're that good at it, that's a skill set that I did not develop. So shout out to the influencers. I want to make fun of you, and I can't with the same level of intensity because this is actually really hard. All right, next thing I wanted to say, keep looking for questions here, cross-referencing. People are asking me a lot of questions about topics. So what kind of topic is appropriate for my essay? If it's original to you, that's points in the bag. So an original topic is always better, but tomorrow I'm going to send out a list of sample topics. It's going to be 2 columns, literally. Here are good topics for the essay if you're writing a STEM essay, problems in chemical engineering or environmental catastrophes on the rise. The EN100 classes are going to get more personal topics. I want to ask out my crush, but I'm too shy. What are 3 approaches? Or I have a brother who's got an alcohol problem. I'm starting to worry about him. What are some ways that I can deal with that? So keep in mind, in terms of topic, it'll depend whether it's STEM or the EN100 classes. Either way, though, if you can make it unique to you, you pick a topic that most people wouldn't pick. That's creativity. So you kind of show off to me that you can create an original topic, but you're also showing off the skill set of having a topic that's focused enough, it's specific to something you're already interested in, and you get to show off those skills as well. Still scanning here, am I reading the right end, looking for anybody who wants to shout out in the comments with questions. So it's totally open topic. That's causing some people trouble. Again, I'll give you sample topics tomorrow with a specific set of ramifications. Another common question, I deliberately gave you a weird example in the directions for the modest proposal essay. So if you're in the STEM class, I gave you like a really weird first way to solve the problem. If you're in EN100, I think kidnapping and murder is like the first solution. So many of you realize that feels a little off, that feels a little strange. Are we allowed to be that bizarre or even illegal in our essay? Absolutely, that's the point of lateral thinking. So in other words, lateral thinking is all about thinking outside the box, having thoughts that other people wouldn't have, and that means turn off your filter. So allowing in things that might be of questionable legality, or bringing up ideas that seem totally unworkable or absurd, or coming up with ideas that you know are ridiculous, they wouldn't work. So you dismiss them out of hand. The first solution for either essay should have that lateral quality. It should deliberately be weird. It should deliberately show off that you're willing to be a little brave, get off the beaten path, and come up with like the purge somebody said. So yes, that's a good example. So let's say you're talking about a social problem like poverty, and you're trying to figure out different lateral ways to deal with poverty. One way to deal with poverty, like in the original Jonathan Swift essay, would be a national purge. Once a year, we instate that. So two things I'd say about that. Hi, Ernesta. Nice to see you, Ernestina. Two things I'd say about that as an example. It's from a movie, so you'd lose a little bit of originality points. So it's very lateral, like the purge as a solution to the problem of poverty. It's very lateral, it's very extreme. But since you saw it in a movie, you wouldn't get quite as many points as if you came up with an original one. So use that as inspiration if you have to steal from movie or television shows to come up with that really lateral, weird solution. Excellent. Best case scenario, if you're shooting for the A, it's a unique problem, and your first solution is actually your solution. It's actually from you. Good point there. Yep, STEM class, modest proposal. STEM class is the modest proposal essay. So in other words, if you're in either of my STEM sections, that's the essay that you're working on. I'm also using the phrase modest proposal, or excuse me, I'm also using the phrase problem solution essay. So I'm using those interchangeably, like just for this particular video for right now. If I say problem solution essay, I'm gearing it towards the EN100, but the essay in STEM, the modest proposal essay, is also a problem solving essay. So they both have the same point, the same vocabulary. It's just that the STEM classes, you're picking a big social issue. EN100 classes, you're picking something a little bit more local. Yeah, fair point. There is a legality element. Somebody asked, I don't want to get in trouble talking about torturing those that are too stupid to breathe, but creativity isn't an issue. So good, that's one of your filters. This idea, this possible solution is illegal. So should I even bring it up in the first place? I think I mentioned this with the journals. There is a red line. There's a point where I will be responsible for reporting you. You don't want to make it sound like you're planning anything. That's typically the red line is, does it sound like I'm kind of complaining about my boss and I wish he'd just die? That's probably fine. If it sounds like you're actually implementing a plan like that, yeah, that actually puts you in a slightly shakier territory. Use your own filter. Try to use something that seems appropriate in terms of tone, which is something I actually want to come back to. Keep going with any other questions. Send them into the chat feed as you see fit. So since I did want to talk about tone and we're talking about relative legality in this essay, you can choose whatever tone you want. So one of the things I want the intro paragraph to do is it'll establish your main idea. So I read your first paragraph. I know what you're talking about. I know the basic approach towards the problem or how you're framing the problem to make it manageable for an essay. The other thing that the intro paragraph should definitely do is establish a consistent tone. So you might start, if you're talking about your brother who's got an alcohol problem and you're worried about him, that's probably going to be a serious essay. You're talking about a serious topic. You're going to adopt a somber tone. You're going to deliberately kind of pace it in a way that's a little more serious, a little bit less satirical. Totally fair, though, if you're writing about an environmental complaint or if you're talking about problems in engineering where your interest in the environment might bump up against environmental regulations or the lack thereof. You could approach that funny if you wanted to. If you want to deliberately be a little angry, a little bit sassy, deliberately deploy some satire and irony, as long as you're consistent, as long as the tone you set up in the intro stays the same through the essay, you're definitely in good shape. Somebody says, meow, hi to kitties. I got some doggies running around in the background. So tone, you can pick any tone you want for the actual essay. Just make sure it's consistent. If you start out light and frothy and kind of goofy, totally fine, as long as you stick with that tone throughout. If you start out more serious, more somber, more angry or hostile, maintain the tone. Does not have to be a serious essay. And those of you that are creative might actually prefer it to be a little more whimsical or a little bit more lightweight. Let me also say, while we're waiting for any other questions, my favorite question is still like the purge. Two main things I'm looking for in this essay. So one half is creativity. You're showing off, you can think outside the box. You're showing off that you can approach a problem from more than one direction. You might have a first impulse, but then you can break outside that first reaction to what the problem is. So that creativity, that lateral thinking, that being able to think outside the box, that's basically 50% of what's important for this essay. The other 50% is balancing the creativity with logic. So you're also trying to prove that while you can have a ridiculous, whimsical, creative thought, you then put it through its paces, through implementation, through a kind of practical, how would this look in the real world? And then that's where the logic comes in. That's where cause and effect comes in. If I tried this problem, or if I tried this solution to that problem, what would the real world consequences be? And of course, if you pick an ethically problematic situation that you want to talk about, a problem that involves some legal issues, your brain, of course, will swoop in. Well, you'll go to jail. That's one reason you shouldn't do that. But you want to be logical about it. What's the likelihood of getting caught? How serious is the jail time? What are the ethical implications as compared to the financial implications? Once I've been to prison, then I won't be able to get a lot of jobs, and that actually hurts me long term. So even a 2-year jail sentence ultimately could cost you many years of salary down the road. So you're practicing thinking long term about any solution in progress. Anybody else scanning one last time for any new questions? This is the beta version. Depends on how. Don't make me worry about you. Don't make me put you on a watch list. So let me just give you three last things to ask you about, and then I'm going to call it, because frankly, I had no idea if the technology was going to work, if the microphone would be on, who'd be wandering around in the background of my screen. So now we've proven that this works. We can agree on another time. And if enough of you are interested, we'll do a slightly more lesson based. I'll get a whiteboard and do an actual lesson with you. But let me give you a few last pointers about due dates. Due dates are here. I wanted to make this as obvious as possible. So if you want to screenshot that, these should be reflected in the directions that you have right now for your problem solution essay. So whether it's the personal problem solution essay or the modest proposal STEM field essay, you should have these dates written down. If you don't, these are the presidential countermanding arguments. These are the official due dates. So all they mean, super obvious, April 13th. If you get me the essay by that date, immediately get a half a grade attached to it. So B minus would go to a straight B, B plus would go to an A minus. So a half grade extra credit boost if you get it to me by the 13th. If you get it to me by the 15th, you'll still get full credit. So you got a 2-day window where you won't get extra credit, but then after that point, it'll be a one-time point deduction, and we'll just make that a flat rate. They are during spring break. Spring break doesn't mean anything to me anymore. If you know you're specifically going to be out of town and you psychologically set aside spring break because you just have to do just like hang out and do a vacation in a different part of the house, that's fine. You can email me individually. If you need accommodations made, that's fine. But it's all spring break. It's spring break all the way till Christmas, as far as I can tell. Good question. Keep going. I'll leave that one. Keep going with any other questions. Let me just break it into two final bits. Does anybody have any questions specifically just about essays? So set aside everything else, set aside homework. Would be okay to use some examples of brainstorming techniques like fishbone diagram, 5 ways to get to a solution. Absolutely. And I would accept that as short homework also. So for instance, if you spent 20 minutes writing out a fishbone diagram for this essay showing off some lateral thinking, would definitely offer you credit for one of the short assignments if you just kind of massage it into that basic length. We can talk individually about your likelihood of passing or failing. Don't want to get into any grade information because if it's not, if it's public, then it's illegal for me to talk about that. But we can negotiate. Let me say as an additional point to that, though, somebody asked if they're failing right now. Anybody can pass at this stage. I literally mean that. Even if you are just tuning in, you haven't emailed me at all, you're just poking your head out of the bunker for the first time. Anybody who's within the sound of my voice or within reach of my email can definitely pass the class. So as long as we're talking and we work out a plan, totally appropriate. Let me just end by asking if anybody has specific questions on the homeworks. Basically, I'm just giving you a stack of these short assignments, hoping that you're doing them regularly, and pacing yourself. They're trying to do too much. They're taking on the quiz grade. So I'm rolling a quiz grade into those short assignments. That's more work than they really should be doing anyway. You're not going to know correlational relationships just by doing those homeworks. But they're trying to take care of the quiz grade. They're also trying to be like little mini lessons. I'm trying to get at least a few of you to do them sequentially such that they might be building some of the skills I'm hoping you get out of the class. But there's no substitute for us going into class 3 times a week and doing a little 10-minute writing. It's the only way to really build this sequentially. And of course, they're a completion grade. So just by doing them, even if you save them to the end, you're getting your points. You're kind of moving towards a passing grade in the class. So does anybody have any questions specifically on the short homeworks? What about homework number 7? What the hell is the point of tinfoil hats and STDs? Going once, going twice. Waiting on any homework questions. All right, I'm going to wind it up here. We proved that we can do it, so we know we have the technology. So I'll probably schedule something like this before the next essays due. I'm going to throw out Friday afternoon as a suggestion, maybe like Friday at 3 as a possibility. If you're interested and you think that would be helpful, definitely email me and just say, yeah, I think it'd be worth it. If enough people do that, we'll go through with it. And definitely email me specific questions. If you can kind of let me know in advance, I can actually prepare a little mini lesson such as it is designed towards some of the most common problems. All right, I'm closing the knot there. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next round.